Hi YouTube, welcome back to my channel. I wanted to talk today about two new eyeshadow palettes that I've purchased in the last few weeks and haven't had a chance to use a lot, especially the first one that I'm going to talk about, the Simpsons one from MAC. But I have started to experiment with, and I thought I should just talk about because they're fast running out in the shop. So for those who want to get their hands on either of these palettes, the message is to move quickly. The first one is one of the two four shadow palettes from the MAC Simpsons collection, which is totally sold out here in the UK online. And a friend of mine very kindly arranged for this to be sent to me from the States. In fact, I did see that the MAC outlet at St Pancras International Station does still have a few of these palettes left if you're interested. I never actually saw them hit the Selfridge store at all, but I'm sure there may be other outlets in the UK where you can still get hold of some of the collection, which also has lip glosses and lipsticks, but it was the eyeshadows that I was interested in. So you can see this is quite a fun little palette. It's quite heavy. It's a kind of metal container. MAC containers for these special limited edition ranges, which seem to be coming out practically every few weeks at the moment. They're very variable. I mean, some of them are really nice, some of them quite tacky. I'm not actually a huge Simpsons fan. I was interested in this particular palette because of the colours in it, but I do think that if you are a collector, this is a nice piece, and they have done it quite well. It's got Marge's eyes and hair, and that's the kind of logo for the entire range, which I think is quite odd when you see it on the actual colours inside. So I think what we're getting there is her eyes and hairline, just a bit like the full colour bit at the front. But to me, certainly when I first looked at it, it almost looked like kind of Arabic script, and I thought, what's that supposed to mean? Bit odd. Anyway, the reason I picked this palette, which is called Trillion Dollar something or other, yeah, that Trillion Dollar Look Quad. I don't know if it's Trillion Dollar, but there we go. I thought this was quite an unusual colour selection. I do like greens. I don't wear them a lot, but when I do, I enjoy playing with them. And these two colours here, this one in particular, are very unusual and nothing like anything in my collection. So I would say this is a quad that I don't anticipate I'm going to be using a lot. And I'm not hell-bent on collecting all MAC collections because I think they're very variable in quality, and frankly there are too many of them. But I did just like the colour selection here. There's another quad which has kind of blues, purples, pink selection, which to me was less extraordinary than this one. So the colours. We've got this kind of, well, it's described as green in most reviews I've seen. I'm giving it a good old swatch there because I have to say the colour payoff is not brilliant in these shadows. This one I would call a kind of chartreuse. Applies quite yellow, and you can see, not really very strongly, but I guess it might be usable, buildable on other colours. Then this green, which is called Green Slushy. Again, it feels very far from buttery soft. It's quite powdery and hard to get a decent colour payoff. I mean, bear in mind I've been using a lot of Tom Ford and Chanel recently, and, they're just much better quality. And you can see it's much fainter on the skin than in the pan, but you might think that's quite a good thing. And I haven't tried it in an eye look yet, but it could be quite interesting, and I'm glad to have it. This one here, which I think is the only Velux Pearl in this collection, is perhaps more usable. Again, nothing like the quality of the eyeshadows I've been reviewing recently, but fine, giving a nice kind of shimmery metallic, definitely green gold tones to it, quite light, very usable actually. I could definitely see myself getting a lot of use out of that colour. I thought when I originally saw it advertised in Pan that it might be similar to MAC's Sumptuous Olive, which I've got here, and much better consistency, by the way. I use quite a lot, but that's actually much deeper, warmer browny gold. They look quite different on application, so I was kind of wrong about that, but you could definitely see myself using this one here to do some good eye colours. And then this one at the end, it's showing up on monitor as more blue. There's definitely a more tealy glitter look to this one. It feels terribly chalky, but gives quite a good colour. And more kind of grey with definite little bits of kind of glitter in it. So again, I don't know how that's going to play out on the eye, but probably, you know, usable for smoky looks. So I would say about this palette that I'm very pleased to have it. I do think it's an unusual colour combination that won't be to everybody's taste. I personally think that unless you're into very dramatic, stagey looks, there's really only one shadow that you would get consistent use of out of. And if you are into more dramatic, stagey looks, then I would have to say the pigmentation in these colours, whilst they look great in the pan, is not that great to my way of thinking on application. So they've kind of, you know, not one thing or the other. They've gone for very dramatic colours, but they haven't really put in the colour payoff to make those dramatic colours look super dramatic on the eye, which I think a lot of people who would want to experiment with those colours would perhaps like. So that sounds a bit negative. As I say, I'm glad to have this palette. If you would want to try and put it in your collection, then I think you are, if you're in the UK, certainly going to have to hunt around counters in various outlets fairly soon to get any remainders, although I would say this colour version seems slightly less popular than the other one. Now, the other new palette that I got, look how the contrast really in the packaging says it all, doesn't it? From the extremely gimmicky and lively and colourful to the very discreet Suqqu packaging, plain black, of this Japanese brand, which is incredibly hard to get hold of, stocked exclusively in the UK by Selfridges, so you can get it online as well as in store, but be warned, the online selection is very different to what you can get in store. A number of the new palettes for fall simply haven't made the online version, although they are available in store. And equally, there are a couple of items on the web page that you can't seem to buy in store, which is very bizarre. Now, I was actually turned on to this brand by the same friend who very kindly arranged for the Simpsons palette to come for me, and I will give the link to her blog below. She's not on YouTube as far as I know, but she writes a really excellent blog based in Germany on makeup. Yeah, she's a great resource for advising on makeup items, does some great swatches and some great photos, so thoroughly recommend Sarah's blog, Colour Me Loud. Now, Suqqu I knew very little about. As I say, Japanese brand, very exclusive, quite pricey, up there in the kind of Tom Ford region, and higher, in fact, in relation to their brushes, which I don't have. And the colours are very, plain's the wrong word, but discreet. What's interesting about this range, and I've just got this one palette, which, as you see, has got a sort of grey-blue, a mauvey taupe, and a silvery off-white. They're very sheer colours, buttery soft, not looking sheer there when I immediately swatch, but they sheer out on the skin to give very iridescent colours. Now what you see, look how different that looks in pan to much more taupey on the finger and then sheared out on the hand. They're really interesting textures. And what I didn't realise when I went to the Selfridges counter a couple of times and tried out the shadows, and I really couldn't see what was that special about them, because I just did that, swatches like you normally do. And it wasn't until I read a little more on Sarah's blog about how buildable these are and how you can combine them to create new colours, and they work very well that way. They also work very well on the eyelids. I don't find them quite as long lasting as some other quality brands. You definitely, or I would definitely need an eye primer. I don't usually use a dedicated primer. I use eye creams as a base. So, I'll use the Illusion D'Ombre from Chanel, or the Laura Mercier eye creams, and I still get some creasing with Suqqu after about 6 to 8 hours if I do that. But overall, the quality is excellent. They're really discreet, pretty colours, and surprisingly versatile. I've got a lot of different looks out of this trio already. So, as I say, they're expensive, they're not gimmicky. They're difficult to get hold of, that's the only thing, because, I would really recommend that you went and played with them before deciding to buy, and see what you can achieve with the different combinations. And that really means you've got to pay a visit to Selfridges in London if you want to do that. But, well worth looking at if you're in there. So those are my two very contrasting palettes that I bought recently. As I say, both limited edition. This one's still available in Selfridges, may still be available online. I haven't looked in the last week. Simpsons not available online in the UK, but does appear to be in a couple of outlets. So those are my initial thoughts with a bit of playing, and I'm enjoying the contrasting looks I can get from those. Speak to you soon. Bye for now.